MGTOW. Just as many of us are following in the footsteps of the men who have come before us, we will also be seen as the first segment of the population to declare our independence in mass. The true effect of MGTOW will be to free the human race. It's just a couple thoughts I had sitting around. And I began to think. And yes, there have been other groups of people who have worked to minimize their contact with the outside world. However, if we were to include all the men who still do everything with females, but have been burned by the family court system so badly that under no circumstances will they ever get married again. Now, we include that with the prepper community and as well as MGTOWs. Just going by the rough estimates within our country, we're encroaching on up to 60 million Americans that have, are in the process of, or are contemplating opting out. And all of us are, for one reason or another, choosing to opt out of a corrupt system. And we tend to come to this conclusion on our own. Doesn't say too much for the system we are living in, does it? Now, this is why we must be thoughtful and deliberate in our actions. We must look beyond our time. We must be mindful of our actions and our paths that we choose. Not only for those that will follow behind us as we are following others, but also, and in many ways even more importantly, we must be mindful on the methods that we take, so that not to close certain routes to freedom by abusing them. And by doing this, by abusing certain pathways, we will incur the wrath of the government, the state. This is something that must be avoided. Or avoided. Blech. We need to each be mindful on how our actions will be perceived and how they will or could influence those that find our videos or our blog entries or just something we end up leaving in a comment section on some random page. That will all have an effect. But as I said, the MGTOW philosophy could, in some small part, help free the world. For starters, for those that missed the international conference on men's issues, that would be the A Voice for Men. Well, A Voice for Men is opening 2 new sites here in the coming months. Now, this right here will show you what men can do if they have a common cause. They are going to be releasing a Voice for Men Hebrew and a Voice for Men Farsi. And the best part is, the people running the sites for Hebrew and Farsi, they're working together. This is an example of what the men's rights movements are capable of, and yet I meant that to be plural. But to free the world, one must first be free. Free of overbearing governments, free from social control tactics. You must first be free within yourself, within your own mind. We are among the first to begin this process. And as more and more people see us for who we truly are, not as women haters, not as the overly bitter remnants of a corrupt court system, not the entitled frat boy living in his mom's basement, but as people that have seen the system we are living in and have decided, I'm not going to take part in that. I'm going to live for me. I'm going to live for myself. I choose to be happy and to have control over my own life. And as more and more people come to the conclusion that having more and more government programs to solve their problems is, in fact, to be selling yourself into servitude, more and more people will be looking into going galt, opting out, leaving society, a self-sustaining lifestyle. They will undoubtedly come across MGTOW. We must be worthy. We must be worthy of their inspiration. In many ways, MGTOW is a push of many of the libertarian philosophies. That doesn't mean Republican light. And as we know, many of the men in Rome had started to go what we would consider going MGTOW. They just did it in their own ways. We must learn from the problems that had been created for the Romans through such actions. Each of us needs to make our own presence more visual. Something that it can be as simple as trolling a feminist website. Seriously, just get out there. We each must also be careful in what we say and how we act, so as to limit any negative attention for as long as possible. We mustn't give anyone any ammunition to throw back at us. One of the problems that men and society had in the late Roman era was communication. Thanks to the internet, that is at the moment not as much of a hindrance. But if the Roman people were as interconnected as we are currently, it would be reasonable to assume that the Roman citizens and the population that still believed in the concept of Rome, they would have pulled back behind the Alps and bolster their defenses and begin to rebuild, in part by changing their cultural structures. We have this amazing tool at our disposal. It's becoming child's play to gather information from the other side of the planet. And it is this tool that could be the tool that prevents another 1,000-year dark age in the case of a collapse. But I digress. We will be looked at as among the first to remove governmental controls to the fullest extent possible, because we're just deciding we're not going to play your game. Our examples will be used and referenced. Now that it has become apparent that we are growing as an entity, and we are becoming an entity that can no longer be easily dismissed, we must be mindful that more eyes than ever will be upon us. And with that, I think that this rant is about over. Well, have a good night.